if there's some timidity or something that is affected, then you just need to process that and just pray for the timing and and for wisdom to say the right words as you use your startup to whatever you want to communicate. And because we don't know how that person may respond, and I find that in my experience, some people are timid because they think that if they communicate this to their spouse in an honest way, we ask them how they're doing, they know that they will never get a good response, and so they're timid, they're afraid. But if it's a teamwork and we have made these what you call it? Just trying to remember the right word. Okay, we have a list of expectations, and we have
Very pleasant good
agreed
day
to
to
that.
all of our viewers. We
If
are
anything
delighted to have you
that is going
on Marriage
wrong affects me
Encounter
or
again.
you,
This is Dr.
we are free
Carson
to
Greene, and
dialogue,
with me
communicate, and
is
talk with
Pastor
each other.
Staton
So you have that
Adams, and we are going to
expectation.
be taking you
It is
through
good to have the expectation so
this
that the other
very
person
exciting
is not
discussion
going to respond in
that we
negative ways
started
or
a few
take life
weeks
for
ago.
Christ,
We
because
are
this is part of our
dealing with
expectation in this marriage,
marital
in this
conflicts.
relationship,
There are
that if
various
something
kinds of conflicts
is
we
affecting either
indicated.
of us, me or
And
you,
for
we
the
need to
past few
communicate
weeks,
what
we
is it,
have been
and
looking
therefore you
at
would expect
the
that at some time
issue
I would
relating
approach you
to
to
when you
communicate
discover that
on a
there is a
particular
flaw
issue that is
in
that
your
come whatever
spouse.
way,
One
and so
of
that the
the
openness and
two
the acceptance is
individuals
there
in
for
the
me to
marriage
approach you and to talk to
recognizes
you,
that there
you
are
know.
some
And I think that
issues
these
with
things
the
are
other
supposed to be a
person.
part of the
And
natural
we spent quite a
intimacy
while
experience, the
dealing
natural
with how we
relationship
address
experience of the
these
couple as they're
issues.
maturing, you know, and growing in the marriage, in
We
the relationship.
effectively
And I
said
will
that you have to
also
accept the
add
reality of
that
what is
if you have
happening.
put those expectations,
And
like in my
today
case,
we
me and my
move
wife,
from
we're
there.
getting
Before we
married
go any
almost
further, however,
almost 33
Pastor
years ago.
Adams, good day, and
We had a
welcome
list of
again to Marriage
expectations.
Encounter.
Good day, Dr. Green, and good day to everyone. And we are always delighted to be on air with you. However, you are tuned into this program, be it live or you are following us on Facebook, wherever. We are just delighted that you are here with us again. And we look forward for sharing much needed valuable information. Call up somebody, let them know that Marriage Encounter is on. We have agreed for
most definitely. Well, let's have a word of prayer. Almighty Father and oh God, be with us as we go into today's session. We ask for your wisdom and your guidance in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Pastor Adams, but I'm going to say it a little differently. Already looked at the whole matter, you know, of accepting reality, and there were various dimensions to that. And then we started addressing the issue of communicating your support to your spouse. If you recognize that your spouse has one of the issues that we identified, whether it be a relational issue, an emotional issue, lack of structure, lack of financial ability to manage finances, that is, sexual difficulties, not appreciating the whole concept of two-ness versus oneness. And as we said for the last few weeks, not understanding the importance of leaving and cleaving. When you recognize that, it is important that in recognizing this is a reality, this is my reality, I have to accept it. But I must also be able to communicate my support for my spouse in this. I must not just say, here is an issue, but I must be willing to say, I'm going to guide you. I'm going to be here to support you. We're going to work on this, but we're going to do it together by the grace of God. That ruffle you a bit here and there.
Yes,
but and the journey towards intimacy
it is so crucial because, as we have said earlier on this program, that communication is the lifeblood of the union. So if you discover that between the husband and the wife, and in general in the family, in the broader context, but we are confining our conversation now to the couple. And
I was going to say,
what happens when you don't communicate? The other person doesn't know what it is, and so they might just see a change in your behavior or attitude towards them, and they don't have a clue as why, because you have not communicated. So it it smacks on immaturity to not communicate to the person what is happening, what the problem is, but there's a change in the behavior, and you are probably, insular towards the person. You are probably hostile. All kind of things could develop. So it is crucial to communicate. It is of utmost importance to communicate, right? And because
willing to make adjustments.
well, I'm not too sure I want to use the word confront, depending on what the problem is. But there's a way to communicate.
Dialogue.
Yes, because dialogue, and there's a way to communicate. And we did say, I don't know if it's last week or the week before,
and then all of these negative emotions.
if there's some timidity or something that will affect it, then you just need to
this level of this
process that and just
so it is
pray for the timing and for wisdom to say the right words as you use your startup,
but the mutual
to whatever you want to communicate, right? Because we don't know how the other person may respond, and I find that in my experience, some people are timid because they think that if they communicate this to the spouse in an honest way, regardless of how they do it, they know that they will get a particular response, and so they're timid, they're afraid. But if it's a teamwork, and we have made these we have made these
where
what you call it, I'm just trying to remember the right word.
There's this level of ambivalence.
Okay, we have a list of expectations, and we have agreed to that, if anything that is going wrong affects me or you,
if I talk to him,
we are free to dialogue, to communicate, to talk to each other. So you have that expectation.
Perfect love.
It is good to have the expectation so that the other person is not going to respond in negative ways or taken by surprise, because this is part of our expectation in this marriage, in this relationship, that if something
sitting well with
is affecting either of us, me or you, we need to communicate what is it, and therefore you would expect that at some time I may approach you to communicate on a particular issue that I'm not comfortable with, and so that the openness and the acceptance is there for me to approach you and to talk to you. And I think that these things are supposed to be a part of the natural intimacy experience, the natural relationship experience of the couple as they have children, and growing in the marriage and the relationship. And so I also add that if you have put those expectations, like in my case, my and my wife, when we were getting married as almost 23 years ago,
and leaving it there,
we had a list of expectations.
If you tell me that,
and we still have them.
If you tell me
you have to go back and revisit them, you have to adjust them, maybe you have to add a few more things because some things have changed. Marriage and life cycle has changed, our children have become more grown, they're beginning to leave the house, and several things have changed. You might have to readjust those things.
It's a letdown.
So you can go back, and it's very important to have that, because you can always bring the person back and okay, we discuss expectations, and whatever expectations are, that whenever there is an issue or a problem that affects me or you, we have agreed for open communication. I can approach you and talk to you about it. You can approach me and talk to me about it.
Now, we're not suggesting you're kind of, I jumped in there just now. You kind of said what I was going to say, but I'm going to say it a little differently, nevertheless, because I find it useful in the premarital counseling process to guide the couple in establishing not just expectations, but a vision and mission statement for their marriage. So they have this vision of what they want their marriage to be like.
On this matter,
and so from the very onset, they're working towards a goal. I want to go back and use a concept that Brian Craig spoke about, which is marriage as a journey towards intimacy. And the idea is that you are not where you want to be yet, but you are moving towards it. You are, with every day, with every week, with every year, you're getting closer to your journey. You are becoming more transparent. You are understanding each other. You're learning one another, and you're learning to sync in a very meaningful way. Life becomes married life, that is, becomes a lot more enjoyable, a lot more meaningful.
This is what I'm observing.
It is natural, and it is very natural. We talk about life cycles of the marriage, but it is natural that in the early stages, you're going to find things that ruffle you a bit here and there. But the journey towards intimacy means that you're going to be able to work out these things and get the potholes fixed so that you can drive smoothly. And that's the general idea. So if you discover that there is something that is not so right, that there is this issue, we're talking about conflict, something disturbs you. And I was going to say, Pastor Adams, when you started, you know, about this matter of communicating, some individuals may say, may observe that there is a particular character flaw in their spouse, and they could say, well, listen, I'm going to accept the reality. This is how my wife is, or this is how my husband is, and I realize they're not going to change. But they say to themselves, and they just said, I'm going to live with it, but I'm not happy about it. If that's the posture, then that's a dangerous posture. Because you have not even discussed the matter with your spouse. You have not even in this instance tried to see whether your spouse is aware and whether your spouse is willing to make adjustments, or maybe you had it wrong. You know, so talking through and communicating is really, really very important.
That needs to be understood clearly that I am not.
Yes, because like I just mentioned, sometimes the person might not even be aware. And then all of these negative emotions you are experiencing and difficult, and the person might not even be aware that whatever behavior is causing you this level of discomfort or dis-ease. And so it is so crucial that you have that mutual agreement. Well, not just a mutual agreement, but we talk about the mutually owning the situation in a mutual way as well. The problem in a mutual way. All of these things you'd have discussed and you've spoken of. So there is no, there should be no fear, because I pay attention to the literature very closely to notice the word fear, because fear could keep us back from a lot of things. And you know, but if we can dispel fear and get rid of fear, then you don't want to be in a relationship where it is so there's this level of ambivalence. Should I say this to her, or should I say this to him? You know, what's going to happen? Am I going to get a bad day or a bad night if I talk to him or her about this thing? You know, that perfect love, real perfect love is existing. Sometimes you can't have that type of fear or worry or anxiety as to whether you should approach your partner or not to talk about a particular issue that is not sitting well with you.
You know, I mean, well, let me add, because I do want to jump to the whole matter of owning your problem. I want to speak to the individual who may have the character flaw. But before that, just another word on communicating your support to your spouse. I said this 3 weeks ago. I'm going to say it again. I'm quoting here from Cloud and Townsend. We do not grow when we are judged, when we are nagged, when we are condemned, when we are resented, or subject from other lack of grace. You know, we don't grow that way. So even to point out a fault and leaving it there, that does not give growth. If you tell me that I am sloppy, if you tell me that I am lazy, you notice that I don't do so and so, and you leave it there, then I record that as condemnation. And what it does, it's a letdown. It's a put down. In other language, we sometimes use the concept of deposits and withdrawal. It may even be a withdrawal if I'm not careful to couch my words in a certain way. It can be a withdrawal. Now, we are not suggesting that you're not supposed to point out issues when there are real issues. What we are saying is that you ought to be careful how you do that. Use iMessages and just don't leave it as a condemnation, because there's no growth when we just condemn or fault find.
Right.
Yes, for sure.
To state that. Speak the truth to my spouse in love.
And then, Pastor, I want to just touch on this matter of
I must speak the truth in love.
The individual who may have the fault. If I have the fault, if I recognize that something is amiss in my character. Let's suppose last week we were talking about, you know, attachment to your family of origin. Let's suppose both my parents are dead, so I can say this. Let's suppose that I was a mommy's boy, and I was attending to all the needs of my mother, overlooking my wife's desire and not putting my wife as number one on my priority list. But once my mother called, I was going there. And let's suppose that my wife pointed that out to me. Let's suppose we had this sit down, and my wife says, "Listen, this is what I'm observing, and this is disturbing to me. I believe you should be kind and affectionate to your mother. Yes, it's your mother. You should be respectful. That's a better word to use. But you marriage, the Bible says, leave and cleave. I must recognize that I have an issue. I must be mature enough to review and to say, when I look back at how I've been operating, sweetheart, you're correct. I have to own my problem, address them, and desire change. I have to want to do better because I should have the marriage as a priority. So
yes, sure. Definitely.
Again, it's important to know what.
Yeah. So it is so crucial. It's a healthy thing to own up, right? Because if we don't take responsibility, then we will not take action to correct the problem, and that is what is needed in the case, right? And the person who is pointing this out to you is not there to.
I don't want to open my mouth.
I want you to own the problem because we have this commitment to grow, and in this instance, you are the one who would need the growing. In another instance, I may be the one who needs the growing. And so, yes, and I'm saying that needs to be understood clearly. That I am not when you own up to a problem, or I'm not going to hold that against you. I'm not going to make that a recurrent destiny. I'm not have the memory of an elephant, because some people have this, that's why some other things come in. There is avoidance. You don't if you develop that posture where you directly have this develop an avoidant stance or type of behavior, or you don't want to speak or to respond if when this is pointed out, or if when confronted, that's not what you want. And some people might move to those postures because of how the other person will treat with this issue. If I own up or if I confess, well, this and this and this is the reason, are you going to hold it against me? Are you going to beat me down to the ground because of this? Whatever, right? Those kind of things can cause somebody, to not want to take responsibility and own up. At least at home.
But along the same line, I was going to ask you, sometimes when errors are pointed out, when faults, imperfections, let's say, inefficiencies are pointed out, we sometimes become very defensive. I mean, you use other words, but I think at the end of the day, there is this human tendency for us to defend, and we make excuse. We do sometimes we use this term, yes, but,
you can come,
we say yes, but you may be right, but so and so, and we think we have some kind of inclination to want to say or to explain away our behavior. What is it about this defensive mechanism that we have as human beings that can be dangerous in a situation like this?
Yes, because and I was reading somewhere, and I like the thought. I don't remember where. I think I was reading some little article on marriage, and the author said marriage is the art of grace bending, the art of grace bending, and the same principle with us and God, who is our Father. When we don't own, He says, "Come and let us reason. If you confess, I am faithful and just to forgive you, because you know that you're dealing with a person that is gracious." And so if both persons would extend this grace towards each other, I think that there will be a more willingness for us to own the issue, own the problem, because this person will extend grace to me, even though I am in the wrong, even though I have messed things up, right? And so marriage is the art of grace bending. We must bring this into the equation, that the other person will want to take ownership
of the
what you do
responsibility.
is that you try
Speak
to
the truth,
assist your partner.
right?
You
And
recognize or bond your partners in the, let
I
me see how
must
best I
speak
can
the truth
assist my
to
partner
my
here. Let
spouse
me
in
see what
love.
I could, if it's
And
a wound, let me see if
I must speak the
I can
truth,
apply
but
some
I must
first
speak the
aid,
truth in
you know,
love.
try to get them back
And in
on their
that
feet
process,
as quickly as
I'm
possible.
extending
Because when
grace,
your partner is
right?
fit,
And
your
even when I have to
survival is
respond to you,
greater.
you can be
And that's
guaranteed
the
that
atmosphere that
I
you
am
want
going
to
to be
create. That's the
extending
attitude that
grace,
you want to
even
have
when you
in
take
the marriage
responsibility
relationship.
for the problem and own up
Yes, definitely.
that yes, I'm aware.
I don't know that
I
we
have
have
messed things up here.
enough time to
But you
speak
know
to
the
this,
person is
Alicia,
going to be
but we'll at
gracious
least
towards you.
start. I think which can be very comforting. When I know that I have
Yes.
when you of my spouse, then it becomes a little easier. It becomes a little easier for us to confront issues.
Yes.
Because you know you're not going to be creating some firestorm
Right.
and that's precisely what we're saying, you know, to know that you can come and point out my imperfection, but you do it with such tact, with such care, that I enjoy the way you do it, you know, and I can appreciate you being so gentle with how you come across.
Yes.
So that's the kind of thing we're talking about. We're not suggesting that you must ignore or overlook reality. Address them, but address them with grace.
Yes.
And that's going to help in your growth as a couple. Now we're speaking specific to when you recognize that there is an issue. Again, it's important to know what we're saying. If there is a conflict situation, remember we're speaking to this in the context of conflict. You know, it is creating a challenge. If it's creating a challenge, it should not be ignored. It should be addressed. A lot of times, how we address, you know, I've heard people say, you know, I don't want to open my mouth because if I open my mouth, it might be bacchanal in this house. And so, you create an environment where people are walking on eggshells in the house, and you don't want that.
Well, again, that is not the atmosphere of love at all. That's not what we want to happen, right? In this atmosphere, we are responsible for creating an atmosphere. And I think sometime way back, I think it was the three of us, me, you, Dr. Braffett, I did introduce a term.
Yeah, you have to have a plan.
I probably go back to it.
It is so crucial that you have that plan.
Once you create a safe space in the environment, in the relationship,
not just the plan,
that
I also want to say that the plan
and the
should
safe
be
space is actually is saying there's going to be no fear of reprisal, of apprehension, or of condemnation, because it is a team effort. It is intimate. We are intimate allies. So we are creating a safe space in this relationship, in this marriage, in this family, in this union, and it extends to our children as well. They must know it is a safe space that they can come and tell you the truth, that something happened or they did something. We must create a safe space where people feel accepted, and that is what home is for. That is what marriage is for. People outside in the context or outside of the context of your relationship might not be so kind or gracious towards you, because towards your fault and your shortcoming and mistake, but at least it's at home, in this loving, caring environment, and we Adventist home. I don't remember the exact page. The pen of inspiration says to us that this is the atmosphere we must create in the home, in the family, right? So we must have this safe space that whatever has gone wrong, however I'm affected, we have made this commitment that I can come or you can come and we can talk to this matter without any fear or worry, or that is going to go out of proportion, that the neighbors down the block is going to hear that we have a little issue here. We must have that kind of atmosphere. We have to create that kind of atmosphere. Come up
most definitely,
and take the responsibilities for maintaining it, not just creating it, but maintaining that atmosphere.
I was going to say, as you mentioned, maintaining, we want to work on developing a plan. But before we get there, Pastor Adams, the illustration that I wanted to use to point out, imagine that because we, as a couple, you are a team. You know, it's important to recognize that. And if you are a team, now because there is so much war taking place in our world today, I want to use a war illustration. If you are fighting, you and your partner are fighting the enemy. You know, your survival depends on the support you give one another. If you discover that your partner has an injury, you don't just leave your partner there and go about your business and say, look, put a little get shot, you know, and you move on. That is disastrous. What you do is that you try to assist your partner. You recognize, oh boy, my partner is injured. Let me see how best I can assist my partner here. Let me see what I could, if it's a wound, let me see if I can apply some first aid, you know, try to get them back on their feet as quickly as possible. Because when your partner is fit, your survival is greater. And that's the atmosphere that you want to create. That's the attitude that you want to have in the marriage relationship.
Yes, definitely, most definitely.
Now, I don't know that we have enough time to speak to this other issue, but we will at least start. I think what I mentioned earlier, that when you are getting married, it's a good idea to have a vision, a mission and vision statement.
Yes.
Clearly defined objectives of what you want your